If the political situation isn't resolved in the next few weeks, there is a real possibility this country could be under military rule until the next election is called. It was the uprising here in Tunisia that inspired people from around the world. But building a democracy in a country which suffered from years of dictatorship is not going to be easy. Nazanin Bashiri, Al Jazeera, Tunis.
The commander of NATO forces in Afghanistan, David Petraeus, has offered a personal apology for the killing of 9 Afghan children. They died in Kunar province, Pech Valley, on Tuesday. American forces are in the process of closing their bases there, despite previous claims that the area was vital to the United States' fight against the Taliban and al-Qaeda. Tom Ackerman reports.
The Pech Valley, a remote and rugged part of eastern Kundar province, just 2 years ago the scene of heavy combat, claiming the lives of more than 100 American soldiers. But after resisting Taliban fighters intent on controlling this border area, U.S. troops are pulling out of this and other outposts to be replaced by Afghan units. The Pentagon says the repositioning is part of a shift in resources, away from isolated footholds and into population centers. That's where the Taliban has been ramping up attacks on high-profile targets, like this recent attack on a bank in Jalalabad, where 18 people, mostly civilian, were reported killed, more than 70 wounded.
We do interpret this change of tactics towards, attacks against soft targets as a sign, as a signal, actually, of a degradation of their abilities.
The top U.S. commander in the region also offered a positive but cautious assessment of the fight against al-Qaeda.
Though some of our gains at this time remain fragile and yet reversible, al-Qaeda in the border region between Afghanistan and Pakistan is under the most pressure they have experienced since 2001.
Yet U.S. officials concede they have made little progress in coaxing Pakistan to hit at Taliban and al-Qaeda allies enjoying sanctuary in the border provinces of North Waziristan. And relations with the Pakistanis' intelligence and security have reached a new low, with the admission that an American charged with shooting 2 Pakistani civilians was a CIA contractor operating under diplomatic cover. But in the ranks of Congress, which foots the bill and watches American casualties mount, even some hawkish Republicans are voicing increasing impatience.
What are the measures of effectiveness? What is our exit strategy? Same old questions, no answers.
And so the longest war in American history may be winding down, but the timetable for its conclusion, promised for 2014, is, as the military likes to say, conditions-based. Tom Ackerman, Al Jazeera, Washington.
In Peru, violent confrontations between illegal gold miners and the police left at least 4 miners dead and more than 30 others injured. The miners began protesting when security forces arrived in the state of Madre de Dios, 860 kilometers southwest of the capital, Lima, to dismantle the illegal plants used to extract the gold. It's claimed the extraction process causes mercury contamination. Mexican authorities have found a mass grave in the south of the country. Police in the state of Guerrero say it contains the bodies of at least 17 people. A spokesman said that the grave was found on Tuesday in the town of San Miguel Totolapan, and that more bodies could be discovered. It marks the 5th mass grave found in Mexico since June. Meanwhile, a UN anti-drugs agency has reported that Mexican drug traffickers are displacing Colombian gangs in the production and supply of heroin. The report from the UN's International Narcotics Board also says that the purity of Mexican-produced heroin is increasing. Mexican President Felipe Calderón is due to meet Barack Obama at the White House on Thursday. The drug-related violence has strained relations in recent years. Both countries have been struggling to contain the supply across the border. Frank Contreras reports.
Neighbors in distress. Once again, security, or the lack of it, will top the agenda when the U.S. and Mexican leaders meet. Nearly 40,000 people have lost their lives in Mexico's drugs war. 2 of the most recent casualties, U.S. federal agents who were in Mexico to investigate migrant smuggling groups. 1 week after the shooting, these suspects, allegedly members of the Zetas drug trafficking organization, were arrested. Police say they confessed to committing the killing, calling it a case of mistaken identity. Mexico and the United States are economically intertwined, but the relationship is often delicate. The latest source of tension, leaked U.S. diplomatic messages that described Mexican security forces as corrupt and uncoordinated. The criticism has angered President Felipe Calderón. He points out it's U.S. drug users and lax gun laws that fuel the problem.
They haven't reduced drug consumption. They haven't reduced the flow of weapons. On the contrary, it has increased.
The latest opinion polls in Mexico show a majority now seriously question Calderón's aggressive security policy. With only 2 years remaining in his presidency, many observers say it's failed.
Calderón's war is really Calderón's war. He thought it up. He decided to get into this on his own. Not only there was no U.S. pressure, there was basically U.S. indifference.
Washington has invested $1 billion over the past 3 years to train and equip Mexican security forces. But the total amount of aid to Mexico has been cut by 30%. The remaining amount is not nearly enough, according to some observers here. And many want U.S. politicians to do more to stem the flow of weapons from north to south by tightening U.S. gun controls.
And then there's the issue of illegal immigration. It will also be on the agenda, but in the current climate, it'll take a back seat to the issues of security, drugs, and violence. Frank Contreras, Al Jazeera, Mexico City.
This is Al Jazeera, and these are the stories making headlines. There's been heavy fighting in the Libyan town of Brega. The area was attacked by pro-Gaddafi forces in a major counter-offensive to take back lost territory. But Gaddafi's troops were apparently unable to take control of the oil port. And reports from Venezuela say the Libyan leader has accepted a proposed mediation offer by Hugo Chavez to solve the crisis. Sources have told Al Jazeera the Arab League has also welcomed that offer. Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis is worsening. The UN says as many as 180,000 people have fled Libya through its borders with Egypt and Tunisia. These were scenes on the Tunisian side of the border on Wednesday, where tens of thousands remain stranded. Most of those trying to leave are Egyptians. At least 2 people have been killed in Yemen during clashes between security forces and protesters calling for reform. Thousands have also been demonstrating once again in the capital Sana'a and the northern city of Sada. Opposition parties have presented the president with a set of proposals they say form a roadmap to departure. President Saleh is said to be considering the plan. The U.S. Army has filed an additional 22 counts against Bradley Manning. The soldier already faces 12 charges in connection with providing thousands of classified government documents to the WikiLeaks website. 2 U.S. airmen were killed and another 2 servicemen injured when a man armed with a handgun attacked a bus carrying troops at Germany's Frankfurt airport. Police have arrested a 21-year-old. Security in Côte d'Ivoire is deteriorating as fighting continues between President Laurent Gbagbo forces and supporters of his rival Alassane Ouattara. Thousands of people have been trying to flee the violence. The United Nations says conditions are dire, with supplies of food, water, gas and petrol running low. International radio broadcasts are also being jammed. Zimbabwe's president has lashed out against the West over sanctions imposed on him. Addressing party members,